Let's, I'm stalling just a moment here. That's what I'm doing, because they're working on getting the YouTube feed going. Let's add one more. Oops, sounds like we just welcomed the YouTubers in. Sorry, YouTubers, that we had a problem yesterday and today. I'll have to talk to my coder to get that right. And I've been mentioning I'm not happy with the way that's working. So we're going to switch. We're going to go with a different fold here. See if this works better, because it was hurting Sarah G's eyes. There. Mint julep tie, ladies and gentlemen, on this Friday. Welcome from YouTube. Sorry we had a little bit of glitch getting you all in there. The problem is not with your set. The problem is with the mint julep tie that we have today. But a delight to have each one of you. Now we are all in on board, and on Friday at the end of the hour I do Psychobabble with Dr. White, and Psychobabble is you put in, you talk about yourself, you talk about your spouse, you talk about your friend, you talk about your pastor. You just say, I have a friend who. They're all anonymous. I have a friend who, and we will take those at the end of the hour. Here is from Pastor Bays in Durant, Oklahoma, who does happen to be going to a pastor of a new church. They moved, he was at Liberty Mounds, broadcast on Worshipify. They moved to Durant just recently, and they moved there because Mrs. Bays, the future Dr. Bays, is in her, maybe she's already called Dr. Bays, I don't know. She's in her residency there in Durant, so going to pastor a new church. So he's got a good question. I'm going to be pastor of a new church. What advice would you give? Here's my advice for a new pastor. As you come into the church, in the first 6 weeks, pastoral care is probably more important than anything. And by pastoral care, I don't really mean go visit the hospital and go to the nursing homes, though all that's good. But what I mean is you need to very quickly come into their family. You need to always shake everybody's hand. I know this is old-fashioned advice, but as the pastor, on the very first Sunday, you should show up a few minutes early. And, as people are gathering in the service, you should walk up and down those aisles and you should shake every person's hand. And if you don't know them, you should say, hi, I'm Pastor Wigglejaw. I happen to be the new pastor, and I don't believe I've met you yet. And you want to get to know their names. You want to try to remember those names. I think, people have different ways of memory. I think the only way that works for me is let me repeat it a few times. And look at you while I'm saying your name, and eventually it'll make the connection there, and tell people, well, I got a lot of names I'm trying to remember. Pardon me if I forget it. And, you tell me again next time, and just assume that if I didn't call you by name, then I don't know your name. By the way, that just for anybody, that's a good reminder. If I didn't call your name, I don't know your name. That would help everybody. But as the new pastor, you need to go through and you really need to, what they used to call it, press the flesh. Press the flesh. Get that handshake there. And give them a good, firm, manly handshake and say, I am Pastor Mark, Pastor Bays, Reverend Dr. Bays, whatever you want to go by. You call yourself that and introduce yourself. And do that every single service. If you got Sunday morning service, do it. If you got Sunday night service, do it. If you got Wednesday night service, do it. Walk the aisle, shake the hand, walk the aisle, shake the hand, walk the aisle, shake the hand. Do it for the first 5 years of being a new pastor. There, walk the aisle, shake the hand. Then at the end of the service, stand at the back door, the front door, wherever most people go out, and stand there and smile and hug people and say thank you. And, you know, a few people will talk, and most people will just be on their way. It's lunchtime. Do that. That is what I think is pastoral care, so that you begin to know your congregation. That, honestly, they are going to remember that more than the sermon. If you come back the next week and you say, well, hello, Jay, good to see you again, then they're going to say, oh, he knows me. The new pastor knows me. I don't care if it's America's greatest tiny church. They need to know you, and they want to know you. And so do that. That pastoral care is knowing them. Start asking them some things. What do you do for a living? Have you always lived here your whole life? You know, have you always been missing those teeth? You know, whatever. Just ask them questions. Okay, maybe some questions you shouldn't ask, but ask them questions and enjoy getting to know them. Care and really, you know, honestly care and get to know them. Then the preaching, I would say, show them, display to them that you care about preaching and you care about preaching the Word. I would shy away from sermons that are topical on some topic I want this new congregation to know. And the reason I would shy away from that is you seem so agenda-driven when you do that. So don't start, you know, a verse-by-verse series through the book of Isaiah, but do start, you know, 1, 2, 3, how many times you're going to be teaching, something that's very systematic so that they can get used to that and show them what you are, and some things that would allow you to insert your theology and begin to train them like you want them to be trained. And you can insert some things like, you know, I think I often say, not as much today as I used to, but, you know, my job as a pastor is to change the way you think. Therefore, you know, here we are teaching the book of Hosea, whatever it might be, and I'm going to change the way you think about Hosea. I want to give a logical argument, and I would say, you know, a lot of times, especially with a new congregation, I would say, now, when you go home today, I want you to know that today our topic was Hosea chapter 13. Church people are not used to this anymore with all the evangelical garbage. They're used to, oh, the topic today was marriage. Oh, the topic today was commitment. Oh, the topic today was baptism. Oh, the topic, because it's so topical in the preaching today. I want you to teach them, oh, the topic today was Hosea 13. And so I would say, okay, our topic today is Hosea chapter 13, and I want you to be able to go home today and pass a Bible quiz on Hosea chapter 13. So present yourself in the kind of preaching you want to be able to do long term. That's my advice. How's that? You know, on all of the other things that need fixed in the church, there probably are some things that need fixed. Unless they have just called you and are crying out and are asking and begging for you to fix it, it's been broken a long time. It doesn't need to be fixed that badly. And as soon as you go away, and you'll go away someday, as soon as you go away, they're going to let it break again. That's not a priority for them. So it might be for you someday when you get out there, fix it, you know. But it's not, you know, I notice city people who come to our America's Greatest Tiny Church, city people who come here, there are two things that they would immediately fix. They would immediately fix parking, and they would immediately fix bathrooms. Parking and bathrooms. And that's city folk stuff. City folk stuff, parking and bathrooms. Country folk, And Taos people are country folk. Country folk, they don't care anything about parking and bathrooms. You park wherever, you know, stick it in there, whatever. And bathrooms, you know, they're utilitarian. There it is. You could read the church growth book and spend a bunch of money on parking and bathrooms to get all that, you know, up to city folk standard. Nobody local cares. You're the city folk when you first come in. So find out what they really care about and bring that and carry all that through. Okay, that's my quick and simple advice right there. How's that? Dr. Tom, good to see you today, and appreciate it. Your work in Cambodia. Oh, Dr. Tom, I'll be right back. Do I do this like every single question, introduce the question and then go to something else? But Eric mentions name tags. I've tried name tags. Now, I hate to be the one who says, I tried that and it didn't work. We did that one time before. But the challenge with name tags is nobody wants to wear the name tag. If you take a group of 100 people, there are 20 of them who eagerly and obediently will wear their name tag. If you ask them to wear it, they will wear their name tag the next 5 years. 20 out of 100. There's another, 40 people. No, I'll go higher than that. There's 60 people. An additional 60 people who will wear the name tag that day. And 40 of those 60 will wear it again the next week. But by the third week, none of those 60. And then there's 20 of those people. Did I do this right? 60, 20, 20. There's 20 of those people who probably won't even put the name tag on because they already know their name. And, you know, well, I've been around here all my life. Everybody knows me. That's usually the people that nobody knows. You know, everybody knows me. But I've never had much luck with name tags. We use them from time to time at our Branson conference. We give everybody a name tag, and when we go on an Israel trip, we give everybody a name tag. You know, people wear them for like 2 days. Dr. Tom, we're glad you're here. Your work in Cambodia. I see some iodine talk going on there. Thank you, Jennifer. I'm a committed name tag wearer. Yeah, I'm really not. I should be, because I'm usually the guy trying to get people to wear their name tag, and then I show up without my name tag because I already know my name. Everybody knows who I am. God bless. Sarah G. never thought about parking in bathrooms, but you're so spot on. It's funny. Every single new person from the city, we need to do something about this parking. We got to fix these bathrooms. And then they stick around for 2 years and they're like, why would we spend money on the bathroom? Come on, it's a bathroom. So, you know, you change after a while. Okay, Dr. Tom, is this the third, fourth time I'm trying to start your question? Glad to see your work in Cambodia. Keep it up. Thank you very much. Can you explain what Paul meant in Romans 7, verse 11? Let's bring it up and see what we can do. And then also verses 17 and 20. Let's put these three verses together. Chapter 7, verse 11. 7 is not an easy chapter. In fact, I would say, so far in my teaching of Romans, 5, 6, and 7 are the hardest. the hardest little segment of the book of Romans, 5, 6, and 7. But, Romans chapter 7, verse 11, for sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and it slew me. Now, with that, Dr. Tom also brings us down to verse 17, then it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Down again in verse 20. Now if I do that I would not, it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Let's see here if we can bring up the outline real quick that would cover Romans chapter 7. I'm just curious what I said about 7, 11, 17, and 20. Here we go. We've got an outline for 9 through 25, so that will work. In case anybody is interested, this is session 18 of our Romans study. So we're in this big section of giving testimony to the validity of the mystery. The subsection, a message to believing Jews in overlap times. And 7, 1 through 25 is being dead unto the law. Now we get down to verse 11. Oh, how about that? I did not say much at all on verse 11. Paul clearly puts the blame where the blame is due, sin, which used the commandment and deceived me, and using the law as a weapon, it slew me. Let's go down to verse 17. Oh, how about that? I'm so not much of a help here on these notes. I gave you very little. I put verses 15 through 24 together. This verse, this section is a back and forth testimony between that which I would versus that which I would not. And in these verses, the would not wins every time. The inward man delights in God's law, but the law in my members, the outward man, is warring against the law of my mind. Thus, there's a spiritual versus physical tug of war taking place within. And who would not attest to this struggle? Note that it's difficult to argue for so-called total depravity while holding these verses which speak of partial depravity, if depravity is even the word that should be used. In the end, Paul's I cries out for deliverance from this issue. Okay, there was, granted, not enough there to go by. So, we're going to have to go back to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven, how about that? Get a Slurpee. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and it slew me. The commandment, he says, is good and holy and just. The commandment was not the problem, living under the law. The problem was that the commandment, it kind of has this, in the human way of thinking, you got to be careful with this a little bit. Let me give an example of a child. You might see here if I got I don't have anything here. If I had a cookie jar, I could pull up the cookie jar and I could say maybe to Hallie, now Hallie, do not get into the cookie jar. She probably never would have thought about it until I gave her the commandment. And then the way the human mind works is, I wonder what kind of cookies are in the cookie jar. I wonder if they would notice if I took a cookie out of the cookie jar. So, taking occasion by the commandment, that is, capitalizing on the commandment. Sin comes and it deceives us. So a commandment, even the commandments of the Torah are a little bit of a two-edged sword. It could be that for some of us, not all of us, but for some of us on all the various commandments, if we were living under the law, we would have never thought about doing that until we heard you weren't supposed to do that. And then we're like, oh, people do that? And that catches hold of some people. In fact, all of us, it catches hold somewhere, some different sin, some different kind of things. It picks up and it goes in. Let me give you an example that I don't know is a good example, because I'm going to use an example in alcohol, and I don't drink alcohol. It honestly has never been one of the things that's been a temptation to me. I came from a family that we didn't drink alcohol, and it was a little more of a prohibition. We don't drink alcohol. But that one, that one's not my issue. If you ever open up the news and they say Randy White caught drunk driving, you can know it's fake news, because I'm too stingy for all that. It's not. No. But a lot of people, of course, are tempted by it. But anyway, there's this debate. In Europe, for example, alcohol, especially beer, is put out there sort of for everyone. In the United States, it's always been, no, you're 21 years old. 21 years old, that's when you can do it. It would be interesting to go and say which country has more alcoholics. And then it's hard to make the connection, the association, to say, and as a doctor, of course, you know very, very much how hard it is to make these connections. Does this lead to that? Is this non sequitur? Does it follow? Does it connect together? What's the issue? But I think here what Paul is saying is, sometimes, like maybe even in the United States, I don't know, sometimes you say, hey, you can't do this till you're 21. Then the 18-year-old says, well, I wonder what that is, the 16-year-old, the 14-year-old, I don't know. I don't know if my illustration is apt, but I think this is what Paul is talking about again in verse 11, sin taking occasion by the commandment. That is, sin will flip to the other side and say, why is it we're not supposed to do this? And then coming down, say to verse 17, now it is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me, which he says in 17 and 20. I've got, well, again, it's going to be the same thing, I think, but let's just double check. Let's go over here. If you're on Biblify, if you click that little sidebar thing right there, and then you open up notes, and if you follow Randy White, you can go, say, here to verse, well, let's start out at verse 11, and just click on there, and the note will come. Now, again, that is the same notes right down on the lower left. It's the same notes that I had on the outline, so it doesn't really necessarily help us any. Again, when we get down to verse 17, yeah, I've got the notes for the entire section, 15 through 24, as I did earlier. But those notes are available for you just on Biblify like that. On the more recent stuff, we don't have the old stuff in there. By the way, to get that, you'll have to go to Friends and find someone interesting to follow. That's where you would put in Randy White. And you can get your friends to follow you, and you put in notes for them too, like a Sunday school class or something like that, all free. So getting back to it here, verse 20. If I do that, I would not. It's no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. Verse 17, it's not I, it's sin that dwelleth in me. a very, very difficult passage. I think that probably we as preachers try to parse that out too finely. And we try to make little individual doctrines about depravity or whatever it is. I think he's using an illustration, and typically with the illustration, the issue that you want to look at is, what's the overall message? What's the moral of the story? And the moral of the story is sin is the problem. Sin is the problem. Until we get rid of sin in this world, we're going to have the problem. And so we have to work through that. Again, I wish I could just give a boom. There's the answer. We solved it once and for all. We do that with other scriptures, Dr. Tom. But Romans 5 through 7 is difficult. I see there's some conversation, speaking of the good doctor. Most people in the USA are iodine deficient. I might have to look that up. See if we're iodine deficient. Thanks, Dr. Tom. Appreciate it. Jay in Tennessee says, been missing the evangelical garbage segments. Where did they go? I need to get them back. Really, the only place they went was your host quit thinking about it. And so I'll get that back. I'll start. I'll tell you probably the number one culprit. Excuse me. Somewhere about May. I'm going to say May 1st. I really removed myself from social media. I'm still on there. I don't mean remove myself, in a persnickety way. I'm still on there. And every now and then I go post. But I don't scroll through. I don't see stuff anymore. I realize, I'm spending more time there than I want to spend. I got too much other stuff to spend time on. And scrolling through Facebook is where I found my evangelical garbage, because I would find the pastors there and Bible teachers, whatever, and they would put their evangelical garbage, and that was the fodder for my program. And since I kind of, again, about May 1st, got out of following social media, and by the way, I don't care if you follow social media or you don't follow social media. I won't make any kind of big legalism out of it, but I have missed. Finding the evangelical garbage. So you all who are on social media, you should send me evangelical garbage. Let me remind you what any of you could do. You could go to askthetheologian.com, and at Ask the Theologian, you could just go right up here to the Ask a Question box. You could click that right there. You can put in your name if you want, and your email, or you can leave that blank. And then just say, an EG question, evangelical garbage, put whatever it is, that you saw on the latest marquee, church marquee, or the pastor of the big box Baptist church, whatever. So, yeah, feed me those. I should get back to that. I like that. Okay. Marcus, good to see you. Yesterday, of course, if you caught yesterday's program, I had missed Marcus's question earlier, and I got to it, and so I went to get. I see Marcus has I don't know if this question came in from today or not, but today or yesterday anyway. It's a fairly new question, and Marcus, glad to have you in Connecticut, listening. I have never been to Connecticut, Marcus. If I was going to Connecticut, I would think wearing a mint julep tie. It seems like a Connecticut thing. I don't know. Maybe it's a little more Kentucky thing, but it seems like a Connecticut thing to me. Maybe if I get invited to Connecticut, I might just wear the mint julep tie. I had a teacher from Connecticut once. My 5th grade teacher was from Connecticut, and her name was Ms. Antonelli. In 5th grade, we thought it was funny to call her Auntie Smelly, Ms. Auntie Smelly. She knew we called her Auntie Smelly, because I remember her one day saying, "I don't care if you call me Auntie Smelly, because that means not smelly." She taught us a little Latin, you know, anti-smelly. And she was from Connecticut, somewhere in Connecticut. I don't know where she was from, but anyway, probably the same place as Marcus. Have you read Charles Ryrie's book, Dispensationalism? Used to be called Dispensationalism Today. I think the official title might be called Dispensationalism Revised, but everybody just calls it Dispensationalism, Charles Ryrie. And especially his chapter on ultradispensationalism. What are your thoughts, just as you went through Ironside's book for a study? I think this chapter particularly would be wonderful material for Bible study on Thursday nights. I agree with you on that. You know, I have read it, but it's been a long time. And Madison, go grab Charles Ryrie's Dispensationalism. Let's just take a very, very quick look on it. So here is what I suspect we're going to find, and it's not, it's been too long for me to know exactly what the content is, but I suspect that we are going to find that he misunderstands what he will call, in a pejorative way, ultra-dispensationalism. And so I'll take a quick look at that, provided I have a copy here, and I think I do. Take a quick look at that. But I think probably it would be good. And one of the things that we are going to do in our retreat in Branson this September 1 through 4, we will be having a segment on those who argue against, we'll call it ultra-dispensationalism or hyper-dispensationalism, whatever they may want to call it. And we are really going to deal with those issues. I've got a number of videos of people who, some of them have even mentioned my name, you know, that Randy White is a hyper-dispensationalist and therefore he's going to hell. They don't say it quite that bad, but shall we say close. Let's check out what's his name here? Ryrie. Ultra-dispensationalism, page 229. Let's just look at a couple of things that he might say. There are at least 2 reasons why a chapter on ultra-dispensationalism should be included in this book. First, it's necessary to distinguish the mainstream of dispensationalism from ultra, and second, the charge that ultra-dispensationalism is only dispensation carried to its logical conclusion must be considered. Goes through a little bit. The prefix ultra is not a very accurate one when used with a theological label. It only means more extreme than the viewpoint held by the one who calls the other ultra. Well, okay. Others insist that ultra-dispensationalism is only dispensationalism carried to its logical extremes. For example, here's a guy that says, Bullinger carried this method to such an extreme, a logical extreme, we believe, that his teachings have been roundly denounced by what we may call the Schofield Party, and Bullingerism has been stigmatized as ultradispensationalism. He's sort of giving an example there. He gives some of the origins. I bet he's wrong in that. And then he gives some of the types. What's he say? The types of ultradispensationalism. He says there's the extreme type, Bullinger and Charles H. Welch. Might I say, Bullinger and Welch could run circles around Ryrie when it comes to historical theology and when it comes to linguistics. Were they extreme? Maybe, maybe not. But you don't have to accept everything everybody says. But there's so much, Bullinger and here Welch, they're just, Ryrie would have done good to read some of the stuff. In America, the extreme type was promoted by A.E. Notch and Vladimir Gilensnoff. See, this is one of the occasions in which the commandment makes me want to say, I should read their stuff. Because I have never read any A.E. Notch or Vladimir Gilensnoff. Notch, yeah, I'm assuming that's how you say that. Maybe it's Knoch, K-N-O-C-H. Notch was more extreme than Bullinger, seeing 4 dispensations from Christ to Paul's ministry. His followers included a number of extremists who boldly advocate annihilation and universal reconciliation. There's that extreme type. He doesn't really say what the extreme type is. Let's see. Acts has 3 sections. Number 1, restoration, Acts 1 through 9. Number 2, reconciliation, the period of the Jew and Gentile. Number 3, the rejection of the nation of Israel, which is not actually fulfilled until Acts 28. That probably is the view held in this book right here, Acts 28, Dispensationalism Explained. It's the extreme type. 2 is the moderate type. The most widely known are those associated with Worldwide Grace Testimony, Grace Gospel Fellowship, Berean Bible Society, Cornelius Stam, J.C. O'Hare, Charles F. Baker. As to this doctrine, this group is agreed that the church, the body of Christ, began with Paul, did not begin on the day of Pentecost. However, they are not of one mind as to when the church did actually begin. So, it gives some comparisons of the two types, but this is, it's more of a newspaper report so far. Not really even getting into specifics, just, oh, they don't think it started in Acts 2. They don't even know if it started in 9 or 13. That's not an argument. That's just, I don't know. Here's a definition. He says, when one boils down the points of agreement and differences between the extreme and the moderate schools, he finds one outstanding difference between ultra and normal dispensationalism. It concerns the beginning of the church, the body of Christ. Yeah. Virtually all ultra-dispensationalism of whatever school agree that it did not begin at Pentecost. All dispensationalists agree that it did. That's poor wording, but... Therefore, ultra-dispensationalism may be defined, or certainly characterized rather definitively, as the school of interpretation that places more than one dispensation between Pentecost and the end of the church age. No, that's not even right, Dr. Ryrie. Because in Acts 13, they wouldn't put any more dispensations than does Ryrie. And he should know, he should have known that. I don't know when he wrote this, but it's a fairly old book. It was before he could have Googled it. But he names all the names. He could have gone back and read O'Hare and saw. He doesn't believe there's more than one dispensation. He just believes it started at a different time. So even in his definition of ultra-dispensationalism, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Ultra-dispensationalism are certain that the church did not begin at Pentecost. His wording there is poor, I would say. And he goes through some things. Okay, here's the errors. You know what I would like for him to do is defend the church began at Pentecost. Give such a textual, logical argument that ultra-dispensationalists would have to say, oh yeah, it's right there, I've been missing it. But they cannot defend it, especially textually. The only way they can defend it is say, this has been taught all my life. All my life. It's true. That's a dumb argument. You're a scholar. Do better than that. Give a robust argument. Show me where it happened in Acts 2, and I will join you today. But they can't do it. So they skip it. Here is the errors. An erroneous concept of a dispensation. We should look at that, but another error, an erroneous exegesis of key passages, like Ephesians chapter 3. Let's see. They use Ephesians 3 to prove Paul exclusively was revealed the mystery of the church. If this is provable, then the mystery church, the body, could not have begun until Paul came on the scene. The most pointed critique of their use of this passage has been written, though unfortunately buried in a footnote, by dispensationalist Eric Sauer, and he goes through. It's too long for me to read here. And then he comes to some conclusions. These errors in the basic concept of dispensationalism and exegesis of key passages. This is where they say hyper-dispensationalism is going wrong. Are the reason dispensationalists reject ultra-dispensationalism. You know, if that's the case, let's assume he's totally right there. Might I say, who cares? So you think it started in Acts 2? Is it such horror that someone would believe that it starts in Acts 9? Is their gospel perverted? Are they living lives of sin? Are they harming the person and work of Jesus Christ? They don't do any evangelism? What's up with it? I think we would end up saying, hey, you know what? In the end, it doesn't make any difference. But I agree with Jay, who says one of the biggest errors is the church started in Acts 2. Dispensationalists of almost every church teach this. And why do they? Cliff says, the term church age is never found in Scripture, but the dispensation of the grace of God. I agree. You know, Dr. Ryrie would say that, they say the church age began. We don't even much talk about the church age unless we're borrowing from their terminology. We talk about the dispensation of the grace of God. We might call it the age of grace. Pastor Bob, up in Massachusetts, which is yet another state that I have not been to. That corner of the country I have not been to. He says, many use such faulty reasoning like the mystery was already revealed, but Paul brought it to light. And then he has the SMH, shaking my head. Yeah. Very good, Marcus. I appreciate all of that. Thank you very much. Let's come into shall we? Shall we or shall we not? Let's answer one more question before we get into Psychobabble with Dr. White. Rodney in Memphis says, is there any scripture that tells us what heaven will be like, or do we totally speculate? Can I give the quick answer? We totally speculate. We know what the new heaven and the new earth and the new Jerusalem will be like a little tiny bit, a little tiny bit. That is, we know that the new Jerusalem has gates of pearl and 12 foundation stones and golden streets and a river and the tree of life that bears fruit, one for each month. That's not much that we know. And furthermore, that's just New Jerusalem. There's a new earth as well, and people will be living on the new earth. And we know zilch, zero, nada about the new earth. We only know about the new Jerusalem. And I would venture to say that probably 100% of our teaching about heaven is built on a very few passages that only describe the New Jerusalem. So really we speculate. I think somebody wrote a famous book, Randy Alcorn, about heaven. What's the name of that book?
I think it's just heaven.
Heaven. When you run out of titles, you just call it Heaven.
And he revised it already.
We've revised Heaven.
Yes, the older version is the new version.
Heaven 2.0. I haven't read the book. But personally, I'm not sure if I were teaching a verse-by-verse Bible study on heaven, I don't know that you could get that much. Now, you could get into a lot of peripheral issues. How do you get to heaven? Who goes to heaven? Some of that kind of stuff. But when you talk, the question is, what will heaven be like? Just the tiniest bit of information. And the rest is speculation or running wild with a passage that's not really about that. Like, in my Father's house are many mansions. How's the song go, Rodney? There's just a mansion. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop. Well, first of all, that's not the kind of mansion that was even used in John 14. Second, John 14 is not talking about heaven. It's actually talking about millennial Jerusalem and the temple. And you put in the hilltop part of it. Is my mansion ready just over the hilltop? What if he put you at the bottom of the hill? Because you didn't earn enough rewards. You ought to request my book, By Grace Alone, Rethinking Eternal Rewards in Christian Theology. I'm going to go with virtually we totally speculate. maybe, there's little tidbits that we're sort of building a little bit on there, but I think we totally speculate through there. Okay, welcome to Psychobabble with Dr. White. This is the section of the program every Friday in which Dr. White gives Psychobabble. You put in your Psychobabble request by submitting an anonymous question. I have a friend who, and we will take that for Psychobabble. I have a friend, one says, who thinks if there are 2 or more gay cousins in the same family, then there's a gay gene in that family line as a result of the DNA corruption of the whole Genesis 6 invasion. That is a creative way of bringing about Scripture in order to try to give some biblical justification for gayness. But let's suppose that there are 2 or more cousins who are horse thieves in the same family. They are, what do you call it? Kleptomaniacs. That's what they are. They're kleptomaniacs. That is a psychological disorder, kleptomania. Kleptos is the Greek word for thievery. And they're manic about this. They just go in these episodes where, everything they've got, they want to get their hands on. Kleptomaniacs. And there's 2 of them, 2 or more in the same family. They're cousins, kleptomaniac cousins. Would we say there's a klepto gene? No, we would say there's something wrong in their thinking and we need to train this thinking out of them. Furthermore, if there were a gay gene, wouldn't it affect other mammals, higher life mammals? I would kind of think so. And yet it doesn't. And so why is the gay gene only in humanity? And furthermore, we could even say, why is it only in humanity at certain places and periods of existence? This would be an interesting study. I haven't done it, but I think if you studied the ebb and flow of homosexuality, I think that you would find that it is higher at periods of decline in society. Generally, society is in decline. The last days of the Greek Empire, the last days of the Roman Empire, for example. It is indicative of a loss of values in society. And this comes about. Gay gene, I think gay gene is completely a means of excusing that which cannot be excused by genes. We don't excuse anything else by genes. Your kid doesn't do well on spelling tests because nobody in the family does well on spelling tests. The teacher shouldn't care. I don't care how many people in the family are good spellers, how many are not good spellers. I expect my students in my class to figure out how to spell. There are some basic rules of spelling. Everybody can do it, so sorry that you come from a tradition of bad spellers. No, this is in the genes, teacher. I mean, my uncle couldn't spell, my mama couldn't spell, my daddy can't spell. Grandpa, he couldn't spell either. This is in the genes, teacher. I don't care. Learn to spell. So we don't put anything else on this gene thing. I think it's a cop-out. We could discuss and probably would be a worthy discussion from a Christian point of view sometime to discuss, okay, what what brings about this desire and this prevalence. And probably it is something societal, and maybe would run more in families, not because of genes, but because of environment. My family, we don't trust the government. It's because of the DNA corruption in Genesis 6. We got that antitrust gene, and so we don't trust the government. That's not it. It's not a gene thing. Here's one. It's a little different. It says, I have an enemy who? I have an enemy. My enemy asked me to pray for him. Do you think the Bible tells one to pray for such an enemy? I did not ask him to pray for me, but ask him to pray for himself. I think that we discussed this a little, I think it was on yesterday's program. And I think just like the gene thing, that one is using circumstances to beat someone over the head. How's that? One more today. I'm out of time, but one more. I have a friend who says that it's important to respect people's personal pronouns as a part of creating a culture of respect in the workplace and in life in general. My friend gives dynamic coaching and presentations to the military, schools, corporations all over the country about creating a culture of respect in your working and personal relationships. He provides the following support of this from the University of Milwaukee. That would be in Wisconsin. Website. Quote, you can't always know what someone's pronouns are by looking at them. Asking and correctly using someone's pronouns is one of your most basic ways to show your respect for their gender identity. When someone is referred to with the wrong pronoun, it can make them feel disrespected, invalidated, dismissed, alienated, and dysphoric. Often all the above. All major professional and American psychological and psychiatric associations recognize that inclusive language usage for LGBTQ plus youth and adults drastically decreases experiences of depression, social anxiety, suicidal ideation. I'm not familiar with the word ideation. And other negative mental health factors. It's a privilege not to have to worry about the pronoun someone is going to use for you based upon how you perceive their gender. If you have this privilege, you fail to respect someone else's gender identity. It's not only disrespectful, but hurtful and also oppressive. From the University of Milwaukee. My friend, This one says, I have always reflexively rejected the trend of using people's pronouns as utterly insipid and stupid. But I do respect my friend in the interest of questioning my own assumptions. Maybe I'm wrong. Do you agree to any extent with my friend on the topic of gender pronouns? I think that this is an attack ultimately on the Bible. Let me tell you why. It's an attack first on language. But the reason that language is being attacked is because revelation comes in the form of language, the Word of God. And if we can make language have no meaning, then the Bible has no meaning. Furthermore, for your friend who does these things, the Constitution of the United States has no meaning because it's written in words. The Declaration of Independence has no meaning because if we can all define the meaning of a particular issue, or we can define ourselves in ways that that go beyond language, that misuse linguistic rules, then we have made ourselves king over language, in which case we now have a society that absolutely cannot ever respect one another because there is no basis. We are destroying the basis of communication from one thing to another. This is a pink shirt. It does not matter if I call it red, if I call it white, if I call it blue. It is a pink shirt. This is a green tie. I can call it mint because mint is a form of green. I can call it, light green if I want. I can call it neon green if I want. I can call it ugly green if I want. But I cannot call it blue. If I call it blue, what I am saying is I disrespect you. I disrespect you because I am actually the king of the world, and you are a little peon. And you should bow down and kiss my ring, our determined color. Well, that's stupid. And it's disrespectful to say that she means he means he, or they means individual, is the same thing as saying this tie is blue. It's blue because I said it's blue, and I am the king of the world. Which is disrespectful, right? So, your friend who goes around the country teaching people, ladies and gentlemen, language has no value at all. Actually, language is completely up to you. Which means, ladies and gentlemen, I just told you I am an idiot. That's what you can tell your friend. And the University of Milwaukee, whose website says the Bible is the revelation of God and should be taken, rightly divided, recognizing the Pauline dispensation. That's the Milwaukee University website. Now, they use actually different words for that, but I am the king of the universe. I can make it say whatever I want. Now, unless you are literally going to say language has utterly no meaning, then you got to say on the pronoun thing, like you can pretend, but we have to go with some kind of meaning to words. Otherwise, the University of Milwaukee website doesn't say anything. Nor does the Constitution, nor does the Declaration of Independence, nor does the Magna Carta, nor does the Bible. Doesn't say anything. And this, it ultimately is postmodernism gone amok. Postmodernism is there is no truth. There's no absolute truth. And so you just literally do away with language. Maybe Christians ought to just start calling every color a different color. Just to highlight it. The sky so red. Roses are green. Violets are black. Sugar is sour. I forgot the poem now that I'm trying to mess it all up. So the point is, respect for other people is to say we're going to use this basis of language, that we put these particular letters and these particular sounds together to have a meaning so that you and I can walk on the same page together. We can understand one another, we can comprehend one another, we can begin to feel and have empathy for one another only by using language with some meaning to it. Okay. I went out of I went to overtime on Psychobabble with Dr. White here today, but thanks for those questions. We'll hit some more of those next time. Now, a programming note once again, and that is that next week we will not have Ask the Theologian. Sorry to do that to you. I got grandkids coming into town on Saturday, and so I'll preach twice on Sunday. I'll do Wednesday night. I'll do Thursday night, but we will not have our morning Ask the Theologian programs. So that is just next week. My apologies to that. So, Chuyita, Jay, Gerard, Helen, Eric, Cliff, Bob, all of you on here. So nice to see each of you. I'm Randy. Nice to meet you. Hope you all have a good day. AskTheTheologian.com or RandyWhiteMinistries.org. Would love to see you in Branson. We'll tear this apart in Branson more, that chapter. And I like the idea from Connecticut to take some of those and do a little in-between study. A lot of times, you know, say between one book and another book, I'll do a little filler kind of thing like that, and that's a good idea. Thank you. Thanks, each one of you. Good to see you today. I hope you have a wonderful Friday. God bless.